Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Elias, Sailor Eli Warren.
I'm Maddie Grace Webben.
And I'm Francesco JRPG T. Nasso.
And today we are playing part 2 of the Phoenix Wright Rise from the Ashes chapter thing. Episode. That's what it's called. It's an episode. I'm good at this. I know what I'm talking about.
Act. Part.
Yes.
Book.
Yes.
Book 4.
Yes. We're in the Fire Nation now. How was everybody's week?
Francesco's got some fun news.
Oh
yeah. Some very fun news. Yes, I ended up getting a work promotion, which was great.
Woo!
Hell yes.
I'm so glad it wasn't bad news.
No, I know. I had no idea what to expect, so...
Yeah, I didn't want to say this, but, like, Maddie was like, oh, bad news usually isn't something that they call you in for. Like, a few days before the big 2012 layoffs at Blizzard, they sent us an email saying, you all have to come in for a mandatory meeting on this day.
Oh, no.
And I had taken the day off to go to the DMV. So I got back from the DMV and came back to people getting laid off all around me.
Oh, I didn't know that part of the story. I didn't know you were at the DMV at the time. That's... wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had taken the day off because I needed to get a Texas driver's license finally because my Illinois license was going to be expiring. And so I did that, and it was miserable because I was at the DMV. And then Ken brought me to work, and I came in, and we're sitting there waiting for this meeting to happen, and it's not happening at the time that it was supposed to happen. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to play WoW. And then we got an email while I was playing WoW that said layoffs are happening, and I just flipped the fuck out.
Yeah, I remember that. You were sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Goodness. But yeah, that didn't happen to Francesco either.
Go on, Francesco. I didn't mean to
what was it, Francesco? You got an email on Sunday saying you had an urgent meeting on Monday. Was that it?
Yeah. Not like to get too into the specifics of it, but I had a meeting on Monday that I wasn't sure exactly what the, like what would basically be the, like what that meeting was about. Stumbling to try to find the words for it, but so kind of spent the weekend trying to figure out, okay, where, what am I doing? What, what's going on Monday? Anyway, Monday came, and they just didn't, my managers kind of talked to me about, like a work promotion, and he was saying like it was in the works for some time, and he just wanted to let me know before the email kind of went out and made it official. So, thankfully, all good. A very happy meeting.
Nice.
Still trying to kind of learn what my new role is and exactly, how it changes, like what I'm currently doing. But, I'm sure that'll sort itself out in a week or two.
Yeah.
The rules.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Hey, at least he sent you the email on Sunday and not on, like, I don't know, Friday evening or something.
Oh God! And you spend the whole weekend just freaking out about what this could be.
Yep.
I would probably die. It would probably.
Yeah, you wouldn't even make it to the meeting on Monday. They'd be like, "Where'd Eli go? How come Eli's not in the meeting? He died."
Oh, he exploded.
Yeah,
the anxiety was too much, and he literally exploded.
It would have been a very different weekend if that was the case. But I think it was more just like they were sending out like an email to just give, because like we're a pretty small company, so it's not like there's thousands of people that it has to go out to, but just an email letting everyone know. And they're like, yeah, it would probably not good if you found out via email, and then people like be congratulating you, and you're going to be like, what for? So I think that was kind of like the urgency of the meeting itself. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm like super excited for it. It's going to be a nice. It's kind of nice and validating that like, hey, maybe I'm doing an okay job. So
yeah,
it's good on that front. I'm hoping I still get some time for video gaming with my new role, and playing more awesome games like Phoenix Wright.
Yep. Because that's really the priority is gaming.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes.
That's
absolutely
number one life priority right there. Nothing compares.
Eli, what's up with you?
Gosh. There was a big fiasco in Final Fantasy over the week that I'm not going to go into.
Okay.
I believe it has been resolved. It's a very long story that has to do with roleplay, and it's all ridiculous, and I think it's over. I think. This is a big maybe. So, I don't know, we'll see. But, other than that, like, the actual RP has been fun. We went on a big rescue mission, and that was cool. And then, like, nothing else has been going on in my life.
That's great. Nice, uneventful week. Hell yeah. I think I was just telling Bernard or somebody that, like, uneventful week is, like, the kind of week I want to have, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, let's see.
How eventful was your week?
I actually did have a pretty uneventful week, but not in a good way. My week was
God damn it, Maddie. Have a good week.
My week was filled with a lot of... No, just my mental health's been acting up, so it's been really hard for me to just even be an okay employee at work and do the basic minimum requirements for me to, like, continue having a job. And also just, like, I had to, like, bail on a friend on Sunday, and then we rescheduled for yesterday, and then I had to bail again. Well, I mean, I shouldn't have said I was free Monday to begin with, but I was just like, oh, fuck. I was literally just counting up, like, the hours in my head of, like, how many hours it takes to do each thing I need to do. And I was like, yeah, I don't have time to hang out with a friend. Damn it. Which, you know, bummed me out or whatever. But
yeah.
Other than that, things are fine, I guess. Nothing bad is happening. I just have a low sense of dread and things are annoying and suck. It happens.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've become hopelessly addicted to the wonderful video game Dragon Quest Builders 2. It's a great video game. It's like, it took me about an hour to be like, yeah, this is in like my top 4 Dragon Quest games. I have a theory about Dragon Quest games. I don't know if this is true of everybody or just of me, but I can tell how good a Dragon Quest game is in about 10 minutes. Every single one I've played, I had like an immediate impression of it. And then that impression, after 60 hours of playing the video game, ended up being the same. Like Dragon Quest V, right off the bat, I'm like, yeah, okay, this game fucking rules. And it did. And then Dragon Quest VI, I remember like maybe 10 minutes in, or maybe even like 5 minutes in, like once I got to like the first quest, I was just like, yeah, this game's a little off. Something about this game's just a little off. And by the end of the game, I was 100% right. And then 7, I was like, this is my favorite one after like an hour, right? So anyway, after like an hour of playing this game, I'm like, yeah, no, this is probably like right underneath like Dragon Quest 7 and 5 as like my favorite Dragon Quest games. So that's pretty, even though it's like a weird Minecraft thing. It's a great video game. It's a really great video game. And I played way too many hours of it. Don't even ask me. I don't know how many hours I played because there's not an in-game counter. But you know the Switch does tell you how many hours you've played all the games that you play. But the thing about this Switch, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you go to your Switch ID, it has all the games that you played. And if you've been only playing a game recently, instead of saying how much you've played, it says how recently you played. So if I look at this game, it says, you know, no, it said how long you've been playing. So it said, like, been playing for 10 days. Or, like, Anodyne is, like, been playing for 13 days. Whereas after it goes a certain number of days away, then it'll say played for blank hours. So anyway, until that happens, I have no idea how many hours I've sunk into this game, but it's a lot. It's probably, like, 20. Which is a lot, because I think I started playing on, like, Thursday. So that's my week. Nothing else going on. My brain sucks, and I'm playing a good video game.
Excellent.
Hell yeah. So let's take a second to stop talking so that Bernard can put in some music, and then we can talk about Phoenix Wright. Good job, everybody.
Excellent.
Mission
accomplished.
We can be quiet for a second. When
we just don't want to.
Yes. So when we last left our himbo, we had just
our precious himbo.
We had just uncovered a very, very big plot twist, which was that there was a second murder that happened at the exact same time as the first murder in a different place, but of apparently the same person, and also this very, very chunky boy named Gant showed up, and he's sort of the big boss of the police or something like that.
I finally got a look at him, and oh my god, he is just so much.
Right? Yeah, no, he's a big boy. He's a big boy. He reminds me of a friend of the show, Bernard.
A little bit.
Yeah. So anyway, so you're both very confused. Emma says, let's go back to the crime scene. So you go back to the first crime scene, only for a second. So one thing I'm realizing now about this game, about this mission that's cool, is that, like, the first day of investigation, you're investigating a crime. And now the second day of the investigation, you're investigating basically a separate crime. And then the third day, as we'll see, you're going to be investigating a third crime. So it's actually pretty well organized, even though it's very long and very complicated. So anyway, you go back to the first crime scene, and Nick is just whining. Nick is like, it's really annoying that Lana kicked over the oil drum and erased the evidence. But Emma is like, aha, I have a new game mechanic that we can use. So Emma gives us these special glasses and shows that we can spray this special luminol spray. It's a special chemical, and basically it makes hidden things show up, mostly bloodstains. Or things that used to be blood. You know, if there's still, like, traces of a chemical, it'll, like, glow, like radioactive style. So you can do that. You get to actually, like, spray on your touchscreen where you want to use it and make stuff show up. It's fun. It's cool. So you find a blood stain on the ground, but something's weird about it. The amount of blood. There's only a teeny tiny bit of blood. I mean, a literal murder took place here. You'd think there'd be a shit ton of blood. But there's only a little bit. Here's where a new theme appears in this mission. A new theme appears. Nick realizes, wait, how the fuck would the prosecution have not found this? Or the detectives, like, come on, of course they would have found the blood. Like, it's pretty obvious. It's not that hard to find blood. And then that's when he realizes, oh, the prosecution could have found this, but then just not shown it. And that's not even really, like, prosecutorial malpractice. It's like, you know, you construct your case in the way that is the best, right? So he's like, if this blood went against their narrative, they wouldn't have shown it. So a new thing is that if we find clues ourselves, but those clues haven't shown up in the previous trial, that means that the prosecution already knew about it and probably is hiding it. So that's a key to what's going on, is the fact that the prosecution is hiding things, right? Anyway, our favorite girl, Angel Star, shows up. There's a bunch of shenanigans with her friggin' food. I didn't...
So many shenanigans. It wasn't really that important.
I didn't engage with it, and I didn't write any of it down. There's a lot of really good flavor stuff in this chapter, but I wrote almost none of it down because there's a lot that I had to write down.
Yeah, and it's really not super relevant to the plot. Like, it's certainly good for world building and story, but it doesn't really.
This took me like maybe 5 hours, maybe not quite 5, 4 or 5 hours to get through with a few distractions here and there in the middle. If I'd been playing this RPG style and, like, investigating every single thing, it would have taken way longer.
Oh yeah, it probably would have taken like twice as long.
Also, I was trying to catch up on some. I was trying to fill in some notes by looking at the game's script. Turns out, like, you can revisit crime scenes after almost any plot event, and there'll be, like, different dialogue when you investigate stuff, even if it doesn't matter.
Ugh, that would take so long.
Yeah. So, like, if you come back here to the garage this is the last time you have to go to the garage. But if you come back here way later, like, Nick will say new stuff because of the new information in the case. You know, he'll be like musing on the new information. It's so much that I, again, mostly was ignoring because we have a fucking murder to solve.
Yes.
We have 2 or 3 murders to solve.
It's pretty
anyway.
Good. It's pretty good stuff. It doesn't really like change anything about the case itself, but there's a lot of good like reflection on like the previous events of the cases if you go back to some of those areas.
Oh, really? Yeah, that does sound neat. And it is true that we do get one recurring character today, which is get excited for that. So anyway, so here's what happens. We find out that Angel Starr, remember, she used to be a prosecutor, turns out the SL9 case was the case that got her fired. So it's a murder case. It was a murder case. The prosecutor won, and the accused was executed. But here's the thing. The prosecutor never actually got decisive evidence. Like, they knew that the person did it, but they did not have evidence to prove it, so they fabricated the evidence. And then months later, every detective involved with the case got removed, either fired or demoted, including Angel Starr and our friend the cowboy. So my prediction from last time, remember how last time I predicted that the cowboy is probably just there and isn't going to be important?
Nope, he's incredibly important.
Yeah, so that was wrong. I was wrong in my prediction. I thought, he's just Gumshoe this time around, you know? No, it turns out Gumshoe is still Gumshoe. And the cowboy
He's very Gumshoe.
And the cowboy is crucial to the case.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go to the police department, and Gumshoe is there. He tells us that now that everyone knows about the second murder, things are even more crazy. Everything's going around. Accusations are flying everywhere. War. There are heroes on both sides. Violence is everywhere. They apparently they just caught the suspect of the second murder. So he runs off to the evidence room, and then you run off to the detention center to find out who the suspect is in the second murder. And it's Meekins. He definitely is capable of murdering anybody.
Oh yeah. He reminds me a lot of Andy from Twin Peaks.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's very true.
Yeah, he's very much that kind of like super incompetent, good-hearted cop.
Yeah.
Kind of feel.
Yeah, he's a more exaggerated anime version of Andy.
Yes.
Although Twin Peaks is anime, as we all know.
It is 100% anime.
So yeah, Meekins is very confused. Like, he doesn't even really understand what's going on. Like, when you first see him, he's like, I have a report I need to deliver to Miles Edgeworth. And you're like, why are you here? And he's like, I got lost. I'm a little lost sheep. And then you're like, wait, no, you're in a detention center. You got arrested. Like, that's why you're here. So almost none of the information he gives you is accurate just because he's extremely confused and extremely stupid. But it basically was something like, on the day of the murder, he went to the evidence room to take care of some stuff. Nobody was in the guard room. Guard not on duty, which is weird. Usually the guard is Marshall. Anyway, we keep calling him the cowboy. If I say Marshall, Marshall's the cowboy.
Yes.
Anyway, Meekins sees the surveillance camera, and there's a suspicious person inside the room. Then he says everything went white. He saw red. He blacked out. And then he woke up here. Meekins says that he woke up in the detention center. That's not remotely true. We literally saw him yesterday. But that's what he says. He's very confused.
Yeah.
Also, his hand is bandaged. You ask him if he killed Goodman, and he says, he says, I have no idea who Goodman is. Then he says, I had no intention of killing him. Also, no recollection of killing him. Also, where am I?
He's very competent.
Yeah. When you show him the ID of Goodman, that makes him remember what's going on. So he tells you the story. The suspicious person was Goodman. So he goes in, and he doesn't know who Goodman is. So he goes in, and he asks to see the ID. Instead of showing him the ID, the guy brandishes a knife. Meekins jumps at the guy, and then everything goes white. And then when he wakes up, he's alone in the evidence room. Goodman had disappeared. Also, his hand was gushing blood. But wait, if the man didn't show his ID, how did he know it was Goodman? And if he was gone afterward, how did they know someone died? Apparently, everything Meekins is saying contradicts the security footage. But we don't know about the security footage either because of some shenanigans regarding security footage. A lot going on there. So we'll figure out more about that later. So we hightail it to the criminal affairs office, and we meet Gant again. They're going through Goodman's desk, including the trash. There's one important item here, or a few important items here. First of all, Goodman in the trash had halfway filled out, but not finished, a missing item report from the day of the crime. So he had missed some kind of item and was filling it out so that he could go to the lost and found or whatever. We also learned about something called an inquiry committee. And we also, Gant runs his mouth and drops that he hates hiding stuff. And it's a lot of work just, quote, keeping the head detective's trap shut. What does that mean? I don't know. But someone's hiding something around here.
Yes.
We asked Gant to let us into the evidence room, and he just does, which seems suspicious.
Yeah, that's very weird.
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that? He was like, if someone asked me for $50, I'd give him $50.
Which apparently Gumshoe does on the reg. There's a running gag where Gumshoe apparently always is just like, hey, Chief, can I have $50? Because he can't, pay his rent. So yeah, he gives us a guest... He gives us a guest security card. So we go over to the evidence room. We try to use the guest security card. The card doesn't work at first. Apparently, the card reader can be turned off. That might be an important part of the case. In the meantime, the cowboy appears. We want to talk to him, but he refuses. But then we give him the steak lunch. Oh, right. This is the part that I, for some reason, forgot to write down because I'm a ding-dong. When we talked to Star earlier, some very important information came up. Why the hell did I not write this down? She tells us that there was all this stuff that went down with this murder. Like I said, there was they faked evidence in order to get the person convicted. She does believe that he did it, but she doesn't. But she knows that they cheated to get there, and she knows that something is up with the whole situation. They all felt very uncomfortable about it. And just to clarify, the people on the case were. This might actually be a spoiler for later, but whatever. Were Star, Marshall, Bruce Goodman, and Lana were all the ones on the case. So everybody involved in SL9 is involved in this case. That's weird. But anyway, because it was so uncomfortable, afterward, Star and Marshall have been working together ever since to investigate the truth. So there's definitely some weird stuff going on. The two of them are friends, and they are specifically working together to get the truth behind this thing that happened 2 years ago. That's why she gives you a steak lunch. So anyway, you give the steak lunch to the cowboy, and he knows what this means. He knows that this is obviously from Star telling him to help you. So, he shares some info. He says, oh yeah, Meekin says I was away from my desk at the time of the murder. I was, riding my horse. I lost my passion for the job when I got demoted 2 years ago. Also, the camera takes care of it anyway. I'm not really much for machines. Also, by the way, the security video deletes each new video after a few hours. So the security tape takes tapes, and then if nothing interesting happens, it deletes the tapes. Also, there's a card reader, and the card reader has a record of every swipe. Also, by the way, the SL9 incident is dead now. They transferred the evidence out of this room. That was 2 years ago. He's really upset about that. Yep, we see that Goodman's ID is one of the ones on the card record. He swiped it at 5:14, 1 minute before the killing. So we get to take the card record. So that's going to be a huge thing, is the record of the swipes on this card. Now we're in the evidence room. Turns out Gumshoe's back on the case. So Gumshoe keeps showing up and being like, I'm back on the case. Actually, I'm getting somebody coffee. Actually, I'm making copies on the copier. So he's just a secretary at this point. Let's see. He gives us... So, let's talk about the evidence room. The evidence room is an L shape, and it has a camera in a corner, which is, of course, where you put a camera in an L-shaped room. It turns back and forth. You don't need the ID card to get out, just in. I'm sure that's important. A locker near the door has a white cloth hanging from it. And Gumshoe says, oh, that must have been left out recently, because if someone left something hanging out of their locker longer ago, it would have gotten dirty or ripped at this point. So it must have been put there very recently. There's clay shards everywhere. Apparently that's evidence from the SL9 case. There's also a rubber glove from the SL9 case. The broken clay shards reassemble into a jar, but some pieces are missing. There's also a saw and blue paint. So here's where we find out that this is actually Gumshoe's studio. This is where he makes the Blue Badger. He just hides away in the evidence room and makes the Blue Badger. So good for him. Cute.
Yeah, good. He's a good
cool
boy.
Guy. We learn that the lockers are special. The backside of the hand, so they have fingerprint scanners, but it's not like a pad you have to put your thumb on. Like when you just go to open the handle of the locker, the handle itself has the fingerprint scanner on it, so it just scans your fingerprint as you're already opening the door. The locker will only open for the person it belongs to. This is subtle, and apparently it's new, and many detectives don't even know about it. So a detective might go up to their own locker and open it and not even realize that they're scanning their hands, which, again, will probably be important later. Okay, here's some more information. Now we're talking about... I don't know how he figured this out. Whatever. SL9 was Edgeworth's first big case that made him famous. It was a serial killing. Also, it was the last case Goodman ever worked on. The second number on the card list is Edgeworth. Edgeworth came into the room that day. Also, there's blood on the locker with the cloth hanging off. With the cloth, there's some blood on that locker. There's also blood on Gumshoe's locker, and there's also a shit ton of blood all over the floor. Whenever I say blood, by the way, what I mean is blood that has been removed that you saw using your Soliton radar spray.
Yes.
Some of the blood's actually there, but the shit ton of blood on the floor have been wiped away. So you go back to Edgeworth's office, and hey, it's the bellboy, our favorite buddy, the bellboy. He doesn't do anything. He just shows up. It's cute. So here's the deal with SL9. Edgeworth says, yes, I used very extreme methods on that case. It was a serial murder case. I had to get in to save people's lives. Here's where we learn something that I really love. I really love this. Turns out Edgeworth has never forged evidence. The thing that we are always hearing, all the rumors about how he's an evil prosecutor who will do anything to win. It's true he'll do pretty much anything to win, and he's a sneaky fucking snake, but he's never forged evidence. He has a code.
Yes.
So our impression of this guy has been wrong the entire game. Which is cool.
He is actually a good boy.
Yeah, he's actually, like, he's a fucking sneaky snake, but he's also a good boy who believes in justice.
Yes.
So yeah, the forgery was just a rumor because no one likes him. Also the head of the investigation into SL9 was Damon Gant. So earlier I lied in order to preserve the surprise. So the full group of people who were involved in this SL9 case were Lana, the cowboy, Bruce Springsteen, Angel Starr, and also Miles Edgeworth, and also Damon Gant. So all of them were involved in this case. Why the heck was Edgeworth in the evidence room? Gant told him to go get some evidence for a 6-month-old case that apparently had nothing to do with anything. It's a screwdriver? So now there's another case that happened 6 months ago. What the fuck is that? I don't know. There's only one more reference to that today, FYI. So yeah. We'll see. Also, Edgeworth gives us a fingerprinting kit, which is To use a fingerprinting kit, you have to put the dust on the thing, and then you have to literally blow it, like with your mouth, because this is a DS, and every DS game has to have weird DS gimmicks, like blowing it into the microphone.
Yeah.
It's good. It's fine.
This was the bane of my existence. Like the first time I played this.
Did it, like, not work?
Yeah, so the first time I actually played this was on an emulator. And I couldn't the emulator couldn't replicate the blowing function of the DS.
Oh shit!
So what I had to do was kind of I discovered that you kind of put dust on things when you tap the stylus, but it's really not meant to, you know, have kind of the same effect. Like you displace some of the dust with like the stylus tap. So I had to strategically hit it with a stylus a number of times until the game registered the print as clean enough for it to identify.
So the blowing isn't actually the trigger. The blowing just causes the dust to go away.
Exactly.
And if the dust goes away, that's the trigger.
Exactly. So when you press down with the stylus, it puts dust on the thing, and then you're supposed to, once you've filled in all the areas, get rid of the remaining dust so that the print is really clear. And I think it's some sort of calculation to just see like how much dust is on screen exactly versus how much of the print area is actually tapped. And I basically had to cheese it for like 25 minutes to get it to work.
I love that. That's wild.
'Cause there's no way I was replaying the game
of course not.
For another 4 cases, which I ended up doing later on in life. But I mean, the first time,
true, yeah.
There's no way I was going to play all those cases again and get back to that point.
Yes, indeed. So we do some investigation. The locker with the white cloth has some. Once you use the luminol spray, you realize that there's some non-bloody fingerprints. Like there's a handprint. And the luminol spray shows there used to be blood there, but the blood got wiped away. And that's Jake Marshall. Also, it turns out it's Jake Marshall's locker. I don't think I found that out here, but they do say it later, so okay. So it's Jake Marshall's prints, and it's Jake Marshall's locker on the white cloth. And again, there used to be blood there. So that's decisive evidence. That's it. Phoenix is like, okay, we've now found that Jake Marshall had a bloody hand in the room. That's our evidence. Let's go to trial, baby. So, trial number 2. Right off the bat, Edgeworth just jumps in hardcore. Like, the judge says, like, you know, is the defense ready? Yes. Is the prosecution ready? And Edgeworth doesn't even say, I'm ready. He's just like, here's the fucking thing. And just starts, like, just jumps right into, like, hollering evidence. It's really cool. He's like, you know, he's got a chip on his shoulder today. Yeah, he's really fired up. He's like, there's a 30-minute car ride. He actually, I think I quoted it. He says, one of my duties as prosecutor is to present impartial evidence. Today, I will present evidence relating to the murder at the police department. In so doing, I believe the way in which we should proceed will reveal itself. So the first witness is Meekins. Interviewing Meekins is about as difficult as interviewing a parrot. He says that he was assigned to the evidence room that day. He saw a mysterious guy, ran into the room. We already know this. He got attacked. He fought back. Quote, I did it. Then he passed out. As usual, we press him for more info. Here's the full story. His job was to guard the Blue Badger. The chief made it his only job for the day, probably because he's fucking incompetent. So it's like, hey, Meekins, you want to have a really big, important job? How about you keep the Blue Badger safe? So he, and if you recall, the chief is the one who designed the Blue Badger in the previous mission.
Yes.
So he decides to put the Blue Badger in the evidence room to keep it safe. And later he went in again when the crime happened. So that's why there's 2 card swipes for Meekins. When Goodman attacked, he, quote, swung his arms like an octopus and managed to get Goodman's knife and kill him. Every single line of this part is gold. I just couldn't write it all down.
Oh, it's so good.
But I did want to say that, yeah, so he runs at the enemy just waving his arms around like an octopus. So he gets the knife and then maybe kills the other person. But again, he like blacks out, so he doesn't really know if he killed him. Later, an officer kicked him in the head to wake him up. And he's still in the evidence room. And then he grabs the Blue Badger and finishes his job by returning the Blue Badger. Wright says, how do we know the victim was Goodman? Meekins says, oh, by the way, I have a video. Gant sent the video to my phone this morning. Edgeworth is mad because he specifically asked if there was a video, and they said it had been deleted. I don't know why this is admissible as evidence. That seems like it shouldn't be based on the rules established on the previous day of the trial, but whatever.
Fuck it.
But then then again, if Gant sent it to his phone, maybe Gant registered it as evidence. Yeah, that could have happened. Anyway, so we watched the video. This trial almost entirely hinges around another new mechanic, which is an actual real-time video that is actually it's actually an in-engine, like the game even has an engine. It's a 3D graphics engine video of literally CG models walking around. It's really, really fucking cool. So we watched the video, and
this video, like, this creeped me the fuck out because, like,
yeah,
the 3D models were weird, and then there's the Blue Badger dancing in the foreground, and I'm like, is this fucking Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah, it's got some major Five Nights at Freddy's vibes. So here's the thing: the
creepy.
camera's in the corner, so it scans back and forth. It looks to the left, which is where the entrance is. It looks to the right, which is where the murder happened. It looks back to the left, back to the right. But
this camera is full of fucking blind spots.
Yeah, but Meekins, in his dumbassery, placed the Blue Badger directly in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So the camera looks to the left, and you can kind of see something, but you also just see the Blue Badger in front of you just dancing back and forth. Then the camera looks to the right, and again, you can kind of see what's happening, but you also see the Blue Badger obstructing the view, dancing back and forth. And the whole time, the Blue Badger is playing its stupid song and doing its stupid dance, and it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But what's cool is you actually get to, like, fast forward and rewind the video. Like, you can frame by frame the video. It's really, really cool. Here's what happens in the video. Duh. The camera looks to the right. There's nothing there. The camera looks to the left. Someone comes into the room. Camera looks to the... No, actually, it doesn't see someone come into the room. But then it looks to the right, and, there's a person in the room dressed like Goodman. He's dressed in, like, a trench coat and, like, detective garb. Then you look to the left, and you see Meekins coming into the door. And then you look back to the right, and you see Meekins and the other person in an altercation. And you actually see the guy lunges at Meekins. Meekins gets the knife. But then as soon as Meekins gets the knife, the camera pans back to the left. So what is that? We don't see the murder. The camera pans to the left. Then the camera pans back to the right again, and what happens? Meekins is on the ground, and the other guy is gone. So it's like a couple seconds, like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
In between the 5 seconds of the camera not looking at him, it goes from them fighting to Meekins is on the ground and the guy's gone. So there's a lot going on here. First, Phoenix points out a contradiction. The locker uses a fingerprint scanner, right? But the video shows the door unlocked. Right. So, here's something interesting. In the video, if you look very carefully, you have to, again, like, freeze frame it. The door that the detective guy, Bruce Goodman, was using, the light on the door shows that the door is unlocked before he goes to open it.
So, I didn't notice that at first, but there was another contradiction that I noticed that I got points taken off of for trying to.
Was it the cloth?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's more obvious. So what happens is they're like, look, that's Goodman's locker. Only Goodman can open Goodman's locker. And you're like, no, turns out the locker was already unlocked. It must have been like, basically then you find out, you say the rubber glove could have been wedged in there, keeping it open. That means someone else had already come in earlier in the day. Therefore, the person who just died, the guy we saw in the video, could have been anybody because anyone could have opened the door. But then they say, no, it had to be Bruce because of the ID card. Also, the reason so few people came into the room, by the way, is that this is actually a special evidence room, only for special crimes. Most of the evidence transfer was a different room. You explained that A, Bruce's ID was found at the other crime scene. B, Bruce had a half-completed lost item form. Therefore, perhaps someone stole his ID. That's how he could be in the parking lot somewhere else while his ID is being used here. So this is a great part. So you've basically done it. You're like, haha, I proved it. But what Phoenix doesn't realize is what he just proved. You just proved that Bruce wasn't in the room. Which the whole double murder thing was the only reason why you didn't lose the trial yesterday. So Edgeworth is like, cool. You just proved that no murder happened in the evidence room. Therefore, Bruce was in the parking garage all along. Lana killed him like we talked yesterday. Bam. Case over. But Phoenix is like, oh shit, what do I do? But then Phoenix says, wait, no. There was a shit ton of blood in the evidence room. Something happened there. Some kind of murder happened. That's gotta be relevant. Like, the fact that it happened at the exact same time has gotta be relevant. We gotta keep talking about it. So then Phoenix does something surprising. Phoenix calls a witness. He calls the cowboy to the stand. Something I forgot to mention earlier, sorry, is that when we saw the secret handprint on the cowboy's locker, and it was the cowboy's fingerprint and the cowboy's locker, we didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
So Phoenix is learning. Phoenix is learning to be sneaky, just like Miles Edgeworth. He's learning that you shouldn't just blab every single piece of evidence that you have, because then your enemy will find ways to sneakily subvert it. So he kept,
like that whole red-white incident.
Exactly. So so Phoenix kept that information in his back pocket the entire time. So now he's like, I'm calling the cowboy to the stand. And of course he knows he's going to say the cowboy was in the fucking room. So there's a recess. The recess is interesting. Lana says, damn, you figured everything out. She doesn't say what you figured out, but she's like, I know you figured it out.
And I'm like, what did I do? What did I figure out?
Yeah, well, the fact that so the cowboy hasn't actually gone to the stand yet, but you call him to the stand, and then it's like, oh, well, let's do a recess first. Right? Gumshoe shows up and says, hey, Nick, you wanted these files? And you're like, what files? Apparently, Lana put in a request in Nick's name. It's all the deets of the SL9 incident. Turns out Lana was a witness to the crime. And Emma's name is in there? Emma freaks out at this point. She's like, wait, the incident we've been talking about all along is that incident? I didn't realize what the SL9 case was. The SL9 case is something called the Joe Dark killings. Emma freaks out and runs off. We don't know why, but she's very upset about this case that she was apparently involved in. Probably like trauma, right?
Probably, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So whatever it is, she's traumatized and she runs off. I forgot to look at the files here. I was just too busy clicking next, so I didn't look at the files to see what they said before I went on to the trial. But we'll find out. So we're interviewing Marshall. He's being the worst. He says he's supposed to check in 3 times a day, but he didn't, and he was at a bar. Then he says, besides, there's 2 security systems. What are the 2 security systems? The camera and the card reader, which means he didn't know about the fingerprint scanner, which is very important. Nick says, haha, I got you. You literally have a wiped up bloodstained fingerprint inside the room, my dude. Marshall says something I think really stupid, which he says, you can't prove that I was there. What if I was using my locker earlier? That's how there's a fingerprint on it, obviously. And then the killer was wearing gloves and had bloody gloved hands and just happened to place his hand right where my fingerprint was. So it was my fingerprint, but it was his handprint. And and the judge is like, I'll allow this. because he always does.
Yep.
But then Phoenix...
He's the judge who allows everything.
But then Phoenix says, nope, here's proof you were there. The white cloth. It's Marshall's locker. Oh, so here's where we get the part that Eli figured out early, because Eli is a smarty pie.
Aw, thanks.
When you watch the video, at the beginning of the video, there's no white cloth. But at the end of the video, there is a white cloth, and that's Marshall's locker. So there's no way anybody else could have gotten in there because of the fingerprint scanner. Therefore, Marshall was in the room, like, right then, right during this scene. Marshall's like, heck, remember, he doesn't know about the fingerprint scanner, which is great. So then they say, where was Marshall in the room? You know, Meekins
Where's
didn't
Poochie?
see anybody. So then you realize it's the same thing as the case. It's the same thing as the Gatewater case. Turns out, where was he? He was being the victim. He is the guy who looked like Goodman. He was dressed up like Goodman. He swapped out his cowboy costume for a old-timey noir detective costume. The judge says this isn't hard evidence. You present... Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. Excuse me. The white thing from earlier was a blood-soaked coat. You know what's funny in this game, especially now? We have, like, magical glasses that let us see erased bloodstains. We have fingerprint scanning. We don't have, like, blood testing. Have we found out, like, who someone's blood was at any point in this game?
No, I don't think so.
We've used the existence of blood, but at no point have we been like, oh, we tested the blood and it's this guy's blood.
Yeah, this bothered me a lot. But I wasn't sure if, like, I don't know, maybe, like, IDing based on blood was not as common when the game came out.
Who knows? Or this is just a fantasy universe where that's something that we're not able to do. I don't know.
It's like a 10th level skill or something, like,
yeah.
No one's a high enough level to do blood IDing.
Yeah, it's strange. And I never thought about it before, but now in this case I'm like, okay, this would have solved so many problems if we could just figure out whose blood is whose. So anyway, he stuffed it in the locker. So here's the situation. Marshall goes into the room dressed as Goodman. He knows where the camera is. He knows how the camera works. He knows how to avoid the camera. So he's doing his shit, but he doesn't expect Meekins to show up. So Meekins shows up and he has to accidentally, like, stab Meekins, but then he gets stabbed by Meekins, and then again he sneaks away, avoiding the camera's gaze, and then very quickly shoves the evidence of his bloody coat, which again he wasn't planning on getting bloody, into his own locker. Yeah, that's a really stupid thing to do, but that's what you do if you don't expect someone to show up and attack you, right? So at this point Marshall gives up. He says, fine, I'll admit it. He turns out he just couldn't let go of the SL9 incident. You say, what's that? Or what are you talking about? He's obsessed with the SL9 incident. He couldn't just give it up. And today was the day that the evidence was going to be transferred away forever. So this was the last day. He just had to get the evidence to look through it one last time. That's why he planned the whole thing, dressing up as Goodman and all that shit. The reason he couldn't let go of SL9 was because his brother was murdered in the incident. So I lied again to preserve the surprise. The list of everybody involved in the SL9 case the full list is Gant, Lana, Goodman, Sky, Marshall, and Marshall's brother, Neil Marshall, who I'll try to call Neil instead of calling Marshall. Neil Young. Or Neil.
We've got Neil Young and Bruce Springsteen. I was also thinking Neil Diamond.
Yeah. Or Neil Peart. I wonder if Neil Young was also if this character also dressed up as a cowboy. They're the Cowboy Brothers. Anyway, actually, okay, fine. I'm lying. I'll spoil one more thing. The other person is, of course, Emma Skye. Emma Skye is also involved.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone except for Emma was literally investigating the case. All those characters I just said were on the investigation team for the case. And also Emma was involved. So anyway, the serial killer never left any evidence until he murdered the officer on the case, Neil Marshall. That final killing left evidence, which is how they finally got him. But Marshall believes his brother could never lose a fight, and something must have happened his death. Well, that about wraps it up. The police station incident totally solved, which means, again, the existing resolution of yesterday's case still stands. Lana did the kill. You're like, oh no, we've lost again. Objection! Emma shows up and objects. She's like, you're like, what is it? She's like, the handprint. You never did anything with the handprint. And you're like, what about the handprint? She's like, I don't know, you're the fucking lawyer. So she's like, she gives you a hint, but also totally doesn't give you a hint. And this is the part that's very, very difficult. Took me forever to figure this. Did y'all figure this fucking part out at all with the Blue Badger?
Like where it was sitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a real hard time with it. Like I don't have good 3D spatial awareness, and so like trying to figure out where it was put based on like looking at a video and then looking at a 2D plan. Like it took me a bit.
I have perfectly fine and perhaps even extremely strong 3D spatial awareness, so I don't have any excuse. Because I also couldn't figure it out. Here's the situation.
Where is it?
Here's the situation. Remember that handprint is sort of on a locker, just a random locker, like near the corner. Like, you know, probably the killer just like accidentally leaned against the wall for a second and left the handprint, right? The thing is, turns out the Blue Badger was right in front of that locker. Like, it's straight up blocking it. Like, yeah, you could like squeeze in there, but why would you do that? So there's no way that the print could have been made at the time of the crime. The handprint must have been made earlier, before the Blue Badger shows up. There's only one option. It's Miles Edgeworth. Just kidding. It's not Miles Edgeworth.
No, there's two options, and the earlier one, yeah, like they're like, oh, Miles Edgeworth was in it this time. I was like, he would, like, and Miles says it himself, like he would barely have any time.
Yeah. You're like, it was Miles. Miles is the killer all along, and Miles is like, that's stupid. I already told you the reason I was there. I had a different reason to be there. Also, I would have had like 5 minutes to murder someone and clean up the body, and like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And you're like,
no.
Oh, okay, fine. So you go you go to the very first person on the list, ID number 7777777. That's not suspicious.
For jail release, call 777-7777.
Also,
that's a late night ad in Austin, Texas.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if they play it anymore, but like I used to work the night shift. So on my weekends, you know, I was up all fucking night, and I would watch Adult Swim, and then just suddenly, like, in the middle of watching TV, like, you know, there's normal commercials, and then suddenly silence, and some guy going, for jail release, call 777-7777.
That's awesome.
Just dial all sevens. And I was like, okay.
That's a pretty good win for them. Good number to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, turns out that also Goodman's name, weirdly enough, is not on the list. So maybe he entered at the same time as 7777777 or something. Who knows? Yeah. So anyway, it turns out that that's a protected ID. Only high-ranking officers have numbers that are dramatic and all sevens. No, it's because it has 7 digits. Most ID numbers are 6 digits. And they can't reveal the identity of a high-ranking ID number unless they have reason to believe that they actually, you know, are relevant. And it's not Lana. She's already been checked. Her ID's already been checked. There's obviously only one person it can be, but these characters haven't figured it out yet. Marshall is so mad And he hollers at Lana, admit it, you forged evidence in the trial against Joe Dark. She says, yeah. Drastic crimes required drastic measures. We did what we had to do, including, quote, forging evidence. She always says forging, or actually I think she says fabricating. She always puts it in quotes, which I think is very interesting. I have a theory, but I'll share the theory later. There's so much commotion that the trial has to adjourn for the day. Because when she admits, like, yeah, I fabricated evidence 2 years ago, everyone just goes nuts. The crowd, the jury, everyone just goes nuts. They can't calm them down. The judge can't calm everyone down. So this time around, the trial doesn't adjourn because of a new dramatic... I mean, it does adjourn because of a dramatic development, but it's like literally the trial couldn't continue. So he's like, we'll finish this tomorrow. Afterward, we reveal that the murderer tried to kill Emma. She was the intended victim of the final murder, but Neil saved her. More on that later.
Yes.
So, this time around, instead of stopping here, we actually played all the way through the next investigation cycle. Did y'all both do that?
Oops, I forgot.
Oh, shoot. Okay, never mind then. Maybe we'll
I'm so sorry. I got to the end of the chapter and then went, well, guess I'm done. And totally forgot.
Let me decide if we're going to do it or not. I think, I don't want to spoil it all for you, but on the other hand, maybe we should. I think we should, because there's so much that happens here. It's really interesting, and it'll get you really thinking about, like, predictions and stuff. So, Eli, pay extra attention, okay?
Okay.
And I'm sorry for spoiling this. But luckily there's a lot of really fun character shit, so you're going to enjoy playing it, even though I'm telling you all the important stuff. Sorry, I scrolled. So this trial, this next interview section, the final investigation, is mostly just a series of interviews with characters. There's a few evidences here and there, but it's mostly just interviews learning a lot of stuff. So first you interview Marshall. He tells you that here's the thing. The murder weapon in the SL9 incident didn't match the wounds, but it was covered up. Marshall accuses Gant and Lana of being the ones who covered it all up and fired everyone. Marshall now knows Edgeworth isn't the enemy. Edgeworth, in that case, that was his first case, he used false evidence, but he didn't know it was false evidence. The false evidence was given to him by Gant. And then Marshall's like, well, bye. So Edgeworth never used false evidence his whole career willingly. He never did it on purpose. Next, you interview Emma. She explains the whole situation. She was in Lana's office at the time. It was a dark, rainy night. The killer barges in and tries to get her. Neil shows up and tries to save her. There's a lightning flash illuminating the killing, but Emma was so traumatized that she couldn't testify about the moment of the murder. Because she couldn't testify about the exact moment of the murder, because, she saw someone get stabbed to death in front of her face, she needed the other proof. Or they needed other proof, which is why Lana did a false evidence. Phoenix says, but why did you run into that room? Why did the killer run into that room being pursued by Neil? Oh, he was being held that day for questioning. It turns out at the time Lana was a detective, not a prosecutor. And she, this is a little bit of spoiler, but whatever, she shared a room with Gant. She and Gant were both masterful detectives. They shared a room, and the guy was probably just running away from, Neil, and ran into that room. Which was nearby. Then you go and interview Lana. Lana says she always wanted to be a prosecutor, but she was a detective at the time because she wanted to learn about how detectives work, how to collect evidence. She wanted to be a good prosecutor by learning about all this stuff. She shared an office with Gant. She and Gant were a crackerjack team. They were investigating the Dark case, along with, again, Marshall, Goodman, and Starr. They brought Joe Dark in for questioning, and he did the murder. She was the one who first came upon the crime scene. When she came upon the crime scene, she saw 3 bodies. Neil, dead. Emma, unconscious. And Joe Dark, also unconscious. He'd been wounded in the fight and had passed out. So that's the situation, and then, of course, he was arrested on the spot. We decided to investigate the crime scene at Gant's office. It's still Gant's office. Gant still has the same office he had at the time. So Gant's office is amazing. It looks like the inside of a cathedral, and it's got a giant fucking pipe organ in it. Because just, he's a dramatic boy.
Yeah, he is a very dramatic boy.
He's still all genial and shit. He's like, oh, old chap, you know. He points at a picture of him on the wall of him and Lana and Neil, all holding a master prosecutor trophy. Then, when you try to investigate it all, he kicks you out very forcefully. You talk to Gumshoe. Apparently, both the police and the detectives are all out for Edgeworth's head now. They're like, we know that Edgeworth did this forgery. You're like, but it wasn't him. It was Gant. And he's like, yeah, but Edgeworth is really successful. He's really successful and talented and is going up in his career. He just has a lot of enemies. People just don't like him. Can't imagine why. So then he tells you some more details about the murder. Apparently the serial killing, it wasn't like a serial killer like you normally expect. What happened, this part's kind of weird. I don't know if it ends up being important or not. Whatever, it's kind of weird. The murderer apparently was a normal businessman. And then one day he hit someone with his car. So, manslaughter. But apparently he snapped. And instead of just doing manslaughter, he killed a bunch of other people. Like, he killed the only witness to the manslaughter. And then later there was another witness and he killed that person. So basically he was just covering up his tracks because he didn't want to get in trouble, I guess. And also maybe the trauma of hitting someone with a car kind of made him snap.
Yeah, he's just making it worse.
Yeah. Eventually he turned himself in. After turning himself in, they were questioning him. Then he escaped. That's when he killed Neil. The incriminating evidence was, like, the evidence that they needed for the trial, the main evidence, was the murder weapon, which broke off inside of Neil. But what Gumshoe tells you, or what someone tells you, is that the pieces don't quite match up. The piece inside, doesn't actually match the piece of the knife. They just kind of hid that and said, this is the murder weapon. That's the part that was fabricated.
Oh.
Yeah. We asked for help getting into Gant's office, and he's like, nah, man, I'm going to get fired if I help you do that. Now you interview Edgeworth. He's really fucked up about this. He feels terrible. He can't believe he used false evidence accidentally. He's just having a really rough couple of days. I feel bad for the poor boy. He just keeps getting worse and worse for poor Edgy. Everyone's out for his head. The day of the current crime, you find out why he went to the police department. He went to the police department to get his stupid trophy. We already found that out earlier. Everybody was there for the ceremony. He was going to go home, but Gant himself asked him to go to the evidence room and get some evidence from a trial 6 months ago. Second time we've heard that. So he goes to the evidence room. That's why he was there that day. No big deal. He just goes to the evidence room and then leaves, getting the 6 months ago evidence. Also, there's a crumpled piece of paper on the floor. Actually, when you walk into the room with Edgy, he crumbles his paper and throws it on the floor and is like, nothing. Turns out the piece of paper was a letter of resignation. Edgeworth feels so like shit, like he fucked up so bad that everyone hates him, that he's going to resign as a prosecutor. Nick says, no, you can't. He says, yes, I can. And you take the letter of resignation with you. I mean, it was crumpled up anyway, so fucking whatever. So then you learn something very interesting that I bet is probably going to be very, Eli, you're probably going to figure out what's going on here, even just from my explanation. There's a conflict. You look at Edgeworth's trophy that he has, the trophy that says Best Prosecutor, and then you look at the photo of back in the day of Gant and his team with the same trophy. The trophies aren't the same. The current trophy is a shitty... No, not that it's broken. The current statue is a shitty-looking broken shield, but the classic statue from the picture is a broken shield and a broken halberd. Apparently 2 years ago, he tells you a big story about the history of it. Like, apparently there's some old, like, Chinese or Japanese, I think it's Chinese, legend about a king, or maybe, just like an ancient king who had like a merchant or an advisor, I don't know, some guy. So some guy gives him a gift, and he says, oh, right, that's right. They talk about the history of the word contradiction, and apparently like the Japanese word for contradiction comes from the words halberd and shield, I think. And I didn't write this part down, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, the story is that like the ancient like merchant gives the king a gift, and he says, this is a halberd that can pierce any metal. It can defeat any metal. And this is a shield that is completely impervious to any attack. And the king points out that those two things contradict each other, thus inventing the idea of a contradiction. So that's why the sword and shield represents the prosecutor. And that's the symbol that they use. Again, it used to have a halberd on it. Now it doesn't, which is great. So then you interview Star. She says Gant was always famous for having incredible evidence just show up. Anytime he did a case, he just has this incredible evidence show up. Amazing. He also controlled everything and was like a total control freak, very domineering, kind of a jerk. Apparently, after all the shit went down, he transferred Lana to the prosecutor's office when he was made. So, like this case, the SL9 case, totally made his career. It made him be the chief prosecutor. He decided to promote Lana to prosecutor as well, so that he would have someone in the prosecutor's office that he could control. That's when she changed. You go back to Gumshoe. You show him the resignation letter of Edgy, and of course, Gumshoe was a huge Miles Edgeworth fanboy. So he says, okay, fine, I'll help you. He gives us his ID so we can go into Gant's room. Turns out anyone's ID lets you go into Gant's room. I don't really get that. Whatever. We get to Gant's room, and Gumshoe shows up, and you're like, wait, why'd you give us your ID if you were just going to come with us? He's like, well, I decided to come with you. So you're there. You're investigating Gant's room. Turns out that Gant is a weird psycho, and he's preserved the scene of the crime in his room for the last 2 years. The desk that used to be Lana's desk is still there in the corner, even though she's not using it. It's not her office anymore. I don't know. It's weird. There's a safe. You try the password. You just try 777777, and turns out that's the password. Maybe the mysterious ID we didn't know before was Gant's ID all along. Here's what you fucking find inside. Buckle up. You find a clay shard, and you find a piece of leather cloth with a handprint on it. Also, the desk has an evidence list in it, a weirdly short evidence list from SL9. You're like, huh. Like, multiple characters are like, yeah, evidence lists are usually like twice as long as this. Maybe this is only half of an evidence list. So you fingerprint the cloth, and it's Emma Skye. We don't tell Emma this. We take out the other vase pieces. Remember earlier we found clay pieces to a vase. It all fits together with the new piece. So the piece that was hidden inside the safe was the hidden piece. Also, by the way, that piece has a little bit of blood on it. And we can't test the blood because we're not capable of doing that. At this point, we've got incontrovertible evidence that both of the evidences in this safe are evidence that are related to the SL9 case that he'd been holding back and not putting with the rest of the evidence. Gant shows up and kicks you out in a very villainous manner. He's like, what are you doing here, He makes Emma stay behind to talk, and also he fires Gumshoe. Right then, he's just like, Gumshoe, give me your ID. You don't need it anymore. And Gumshoe's really sad about this. Yeah.
Poor Gumshoe.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Later you hear, so you don't see Gumshoe at all for the rest of the investigation. Also, you hear that Emma is being questioned, and you don't see her again either. So you're all alone. Final interview with Lana. Final thing before we're going to wrap this whole case up once and for all. You interview Lana again. Nick is upset. He says, Lana, nothing you've told me this entire time has been useful. Thanks a lot, bitch. That's me, not Lana, or not Nick. Nick is a good himbo, good boy, and is not a misogynist. But I can say that. So, she says, no, I did say one useful thing. Remember the first thing I ever said? I said I was the one who stabbed Goodman. At this point, I'm thinking, like, quotation marks, quotation marks, quotation marks. Like, my linguistic analysis from last time turns out was right. Her weird, like, evasive, like, passive voice. You accuse Lana. You say, you can't tell the truth, not because you're protecting someone, like in the previous case where someone was protecting his son, but because you're afraid of someone. Damon Gant has shit on you, and you can't do anything about it. And she basically says, yes, but I'm still not going to talk unless you can, like, I'm not going to talk. Apparently Lana and Edgeworth took all the heat for the forgery, but no scrutiny was given towards Gant because Lana threw herself under the bus. She's clearly terrified, and that's how it's been all along ever since then. But then you show her the stuff you found in the safe. You show the clay, you show the Lana, the Emma fingerprint. Once you show her that, she changes her tune. She opens up. And maybe she sees, oh, I thought this guy was going to win for sure and I couldn't defeat him. But now that I see that Phoenix Wright might be able to beat this guy, I will open up to him, right? So she tells you that she was just following orders all along. The thing that she did in the murder was she was following orders. The orders were this. Quote, I need you to dispose of Bruce Goodman's body. You'll find it inside the trunk of Miles Edgeworth's car. Then we find out that, so she goes to Miles Edgeworth's car, she gets it. She sees that Miles Edgeworth has the SL9 knife stuck in it. She thinks to herself, I don't want the SL9 case to come up for any reason. I want that to be completely hidden. So she takes the SL9 knife out, hides it in the muffler, and hides the muffler in the muffler. And then she takes Edgeworth's knife out of the trunk of the car and stabs the guy again. So she wasn't lying. She stabbed him. And the guy, remember she said, I stabbed him. And she also said he was murdered. She didn't say she murdered him. Yeah. So she re-stabs the guy. So what the witness thought she saw was Lana killing the guy was actually Lana just holding the guy's body up for a second so that she could get a good stab. And then she puts the body back in. Then she calls Emma. She says, hey, please go get the fucking thing out of the muffler. And then she leaves. Also, right after she got the order to begin with, the very first order, the order to go and get the body, the first thing she did was call Marshall. The fact that she called Marshall caused everything that Marshall did. Like, when she called Marshall and said that she's being ordered to remove this body, Marshall's like, oh shit, Gant is trying to cover up this entire thing. I need to go get the evidence from the SL9 case out of the evidence room. So Marshall was good all along. He was just trying to save the day. It didn't work. Whatever. That's the last piece of info we get. To be continued. Final trial. Eli, predictions.
I mean, Gant is clearly hiding something very awful.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So here's one sort of out there prediction that I have. They keep saying that they quote-unquote fabricated evidence, but they put it in quotes, which is weird. And she keeps saying we, like, made evidence. What I think that means is the evidence wasn't fake at all, but they made the evidence exist. Which is to say, actually, come to think of it, this doesn't work anymore. My prediction halfway through was that they actually set up Emma as bait.
Gotcha.
So they created evidence by literally causing that final murder to happen, thus creating the evidence, right?
Yeah.
Although now that we've heard Emma's side of the story, that doesn't really check out. Although I still think that maybe, like, that tragedy of Neil Young's death was caused on purpose by Gant. So that's my guess about the big secret that he's hiding. Or maybe Gant fucking killed him himself. Maybe Gant actually committed that murder in order to make evidence to get... Because, I mean, the bad guy did turn himself in.
Yeah.
So, anyway, something like that. You know, like, that murder was actually fake. They made the murder happen just to get the bad guy. Let's see. I just realized something. The trunk was Miles Edgeworth's car, right? How'd it get there?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I already know the answer. Think about it. I just figured it out.
Oh. Because they're trying to frame Edgeworth.
Right, but when did it get there?
When did it get there? Oh, how did it get there? I don't fucking know. I'm not good at this.
Okay, well, I didn't know this one until just now because I just reread all of the clues and evidence. Here's my prediction, because I just figured it out 10 seconds ago. That's why Gant was like, "Hey, Miles Edgeworth, can you go to the evidence room and get something from 6 months ago?"
Oh,
I think the 6 months ago case actually is unimportant. He just needed to delay Edgeworth so that he could stuff a body in his car.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's my theory. Other theories, the murder weapon was perhaps not a knife at all.
Predictions.
Huh?
I'm not good at predictions like this. I'm just I don't know what's gonna happen because I pay attention, but I can't draw a conclusion really well.
Right. Predictions are hard. And also, I'm sure a lot of stuff is going to come up in the final trial, in the interviews, right?
Yeah.
There's information that we still don't actually know, which is definitely how defense attorneys actually work. You definitely hope that something comes up during the trial itself that helps you. You don't plan a airtight case before you start the trial or anything. Let's see. That's the main thing. I had a few other predictions, but that's my main thing is piecing together how the entire thing worked. So of course, Bruce Goodman had been killed just fucking earlier in the day. Maybe Damon Gant asked Bruce Goodman, "Hey, Bruce Goodman, step into my office, or let's go to the evidence room together." And then he killed Bruce in the evidence room, left, put it in the car, and then the rest of the plot happened, right? And it was at least 30 minutes. That way that Miles could drive the evidence to the other location. That way it could get retrieved. In addition to that, do you think you know what the murder weapon might have been back in the day?
I don't ever want to play one of these games again because I just feel stupid.
Well, to be fair, I have literally already played this game, so I might not actually be figuring it out. I could just be remembering.
Yeah.
But
probably a knife.
One thing I like about this game is that there have been a number of unusual murder weapons in this game.
Oh, could it maybe have been the halberd off of that trophy?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the halberd.
I just that clicked. I was like, oh shit. That's why it's not on that trophy anymore.
Yep. I mean, as soon as a weird weapon appears, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Like a steel samurai lance or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Except that wasn't the murder weapon. But
true. It was a red herring. They actually, in truth, he stabbed the guy with a red herring.
With an actual herring.
Yeah. But at any rate, though, so I think those are all my predictions, is that back in the day, Damon Gant actually stabbed the guy with a fucking halberd, which is really badass, and then, I guess, pretended to stab him with a knife or something. Emma's still somehow involved in this. Her testimony was not complete. And then the whole situation here, I mean, actually, I think the situation in the present is pretty simple and pretty much wrapped up. Damon Gant planned all of this. He murdered the guy. He did all the shenanigans. He was framing Lana, all that shit. But proving it is going to be another matter. I don't know how to prove it. I don't know how Phoenix is going to prove it. I bet we could look at the evidence list real fast, but I don't feel like it. Because that would require me having to look it up on the internet. And I'm not going to. Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that the last trial is really long. I looked it up. So, yeah, we'll fucking find out.
Yeah.
Alright, memorable moments?
I feel really bad for poor Gumshoe because when you're investigating the evidence room, everything you come across, you're like, that's probably Gumshoe's fault.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's just like,
there's all this evidence where he's just like, oh no, that was just me, I fucked up. I accidentally left that there.
Yeah. And so Phoenix just starts going, oh, that's probably also Gumshoe's fault. And I really thought that the video portion was interesting. Like, as freaky as that video was, it was a neat new way to look at evidence, and I thought it was a good addition.
Yeah, of all the new DS stuff, like that's the thing I like the most. I think it's really, really cool, like using this fancy 3D technology and stuff like that. The fact that you can advance it forward and back, I think, is the craziest thing, because that's actually that's a lot harder than just playing an FMV, right? Like, like the programming involved to make it where you can frame by frame it is really cool. So good job on the programmers of that. Yeah,
and I think you point out something on like the video at one point, and you actually like the frame actually freezes, and it's like, how do they actually? They have to, I guess, plan for each of those frames, possibly pressing a moment on, so they definitely did a good job with that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that every single frame you could pick to stop on has a bump map of where you would tap, right, in order to tap on the thing. Like, oh, if you're on this frame, like they maybe custom drew it out. Like, if the player pauses on this frame, then these are the pixels of the image that are the white cloth, right? So we'll program it in where if you tap there, that's tapping the white cloth. That's how I think it probably works.
I can see that.
And the frame rate's not super high, so that wouldn't be a shit ton of bump maps.
Nope.
But yeah, that's basically all I got.
What about you, Francesco?
I like the bento box stuff. That was really cool. Where I think someone had fun just making a ton of different images of different types of bento to just kind of share.
Yeah.
Well, did you write down any examples? Because I definitely didn't.
There was the steak one. There was one that was like an octopus made out of hot dogs.
Oh yeah, that's a thing that they do in Japan. They take hot dogs and they cut them up to look like octopuses.
Yeah, and I don't remember like any one of them specifically, but there was a few that were just like these, like supposed to be these really bad bento boxes, and like some of them just had like really odd looking art on it. I thought those were pretty
nice. Good. I remember a lot of them looking very, very strange. Good shit.
Yeah.
One of mine is actually a theme line. Lana says at one point, you're like, she says that Miles has been having a lot of trouble ever since the thing that just happened yesterday, and you're like, but he didn't do the evidence on purpose, he didn't mess up. And basically Lana says, here's the line. She says, life doesn't end with the closing of a case. Everyone has to live the rest of their lives with their memories. Which I think is very much the theme that's going on here. Is like, I mean, even in the previous case, it's like, even if you get exonerated, it still stays with you, right? Both emotionally, in the case of perhaps Emma and trauma, but also like materially, in the sake of your reputation, material consequences, stuff like that. So the idea that these cases aren't just done once they end and Phoenix moves on to the next person. All these characters have repercussions, which is cool. Also, when you're interviewing Meekins about the video and how there's something hanging halfway out the door, he basically is like, but sir, it's been my experience that things fall out when doors are opened. I often fall out and roll great distances when I open my car, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, basically every line is like, Meekins is like, oh yeah, that reminds me of me fucking up constantly.
I catch my tie in the car door 2 out of 3 times when I get out. The third time is because I've caught my badge in the door.
Yes. At one point, when you investigate the giant pipe organ, Gumshoe says a line. Again, this is not an important plot line. It's just a pun. Or it's not actually meant to be a pun, but I laughed because I'm me. Gumshoe says, "The chief's organ sure is a sight to behold." So.
Oh dear. Oh my.
I'm laughing at that one.
Yeah. Yes.
And my final one, I have to scroll up for it. Man, I have 8 pages of notes this time around. That's the most notes for sure of any episode. Yeah. Nosebleed? What? Something about a nosebleed? Who cares? Meekins being a lost little lamb, and you already mentioned it. Gant lending Gumshoe $50. Hell yeah! Francesco, you have any more?
Just on the nosebleed part, I think he has at one point he has like something like in his nose like to block him from having a nosebleed, and then when you present him with something really startling, they like pop out, and he has to like reapply. I don't know. It was a good animation. I know,
that's a good bit.
I know what you're talking about, but
what happens is when you're investigating Edgeworth's office, you can once you get the luminol spray, you can use it in every single scene, and there's all sorts of fun Easter eggs. So in Edgeworth's office, you can look for blood, and you actually find blood in Edgy's office, and you're like, "What? There's blood? Murder!" And it's like, "Oh no, this is just from his nosebleed because he was stressed out." Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that I saw.
I completely forgot you could do that.
Yep. I didn't do it very much, but I did do it occasionally.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I did not present my badge to everybody this time around.
Oh yeah, it kind of gets old by case 5.
Yep, which is a damn shame. But I definitely was using luminol spray because it's fun. The thing about luminol spray is it doesn't take that long because most places don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you want to see the Easter eggs, it's actually not a huge time suck. You just turn it on real fast, click on the one thing that there is, if there's anything, and then turn it off. So it's no big deal. It's fun. Cool. Awesome. So that is it. All we have left is the final trial. It's going to be a little bit short, but not particularly short. So for next week, we are playing to the end of the game. We're going to get credits. I know we already got credits. We're going to get credits again, but for real this time. Yeah, and we'll figure it the fuck out. Last week we were going to check on what game was winning our poll, and we didn't because we didn't know how, but then friend of the show Bernard asked Sam how it was going in the host chat, and Sam said a few days ago that Ease is currently winning in the poll.
Okay.
So, just as a reminder, a poll is currently going. The two games are Ease 1 and 2, and the other game is Star Tropics 1 and 2. Ease is winning, so if you want us to play Star Tropics instead, go in and donate and vote for Star Tropics. Or if you want to make sure we definitely play Ease, vote for Ease. For the love of God, don't make it a tie. Y'all always make it a fucking tie. Every single time it's a tie.
They just really like it.
It drives me insane. And we always have to. It doesn't. Sometimes someone breaks the tie right at the end, but we're always like, oh god, are we gonna have to do a tiebreaker vote again? Because we don't want to have to break the tie. That defeats the point of a vote. So anyway,
yeah, it basically just turns into us deciding what we're gonna play.
So anyway, everybody go vote for Ease. That way, there's not a tie. Okay? Because I just said Ease is winning. So if everyone goes and votes for Star Tropics just to be contrarian, then we're gonna end up with the same situation we always end up with. I hate all of our listeners. I'm just kidding. I really like all of our listeners.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. Parody. That is a parody, not real. I love our listeners, and I love when they vote however they want to vote.
Yes.
Cool. Anyway, yeah, so RPG Book Club, you should go to rpgbook.club. That's our website. We got all our good shit on it. We definitely forgot to be quiet for a second for memorable moments. That's okay. Sorry, Bernard. Anyway, you have links to our Twitter, our Discord, our Ko-Fi. Give us some bucks so that you can donate to our stuff. You also get some extra fun bonus content. I already shared last time, we've got a lot of bonus content coming down the pipe on account of people being big fans and giving us big chunks of change. Really appreciate y'all. That means we're going to be able to pay for...
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's going to be really cool that we get to play games that might actually cost $20 or $30 or $40 without us having to pay for it, because we don't want to do that because we're all broke. But now we get to do that, so we're not just restricting ourselves to playing games that cost $5 on the fucking eShop, which is really, really nice. So yeah, thank you to all of our listeners, but especially the ones that give us any amount of donation, because the big ones help, but the little ones also add up. So appreciate all of you.
Yes.
Anything else we got to say?
I think we're
Yeah, I
good.
think we're okay.
Sam's doing great, by the way. Everything's chill.
Yep.
Some new the biggest news in the entire year for Sam happened today. A new Digimon TV show. That's the most important thing in Sam's life. I can't think of anything else that would be bigger that has happened in the last couple of weeks.
No, the whole reason that he's been gone is because he's been preparing for this.
Yeah, he took a work leave to prepare for the arrival of his son, and his son is a new Digimon series. Anyway, we'll see him back in a hot minute.
Beautiful boy.
So, anywho, thanks for listening. This has been RPG Book Club. I am Maddie Grace Webben.
I am Elias Saley Eli Warren.
Francesco JRPGT Nassau.
Let's go solve that case, motherfuckers. Bye!
Toodaloo!